My daughter is seriously injured and in critical condition. I suddenly received a call from my son. I was on an overseas trip, but upon learning about my granddaughter's emergency, I immediately returned home. However, it was already too late, and I didn't make it in time. My 5-year-old granddaughter had passed away and was placed in a small urn. A year later, when I went to visit the grave, I saw a little girl praying there. To my surprise, it was my granddaughter who was supposed to have died. She saw me and happily ran towards me. While doubting my eyes, I hugged her tightly. Then, I heard the terrifying truth I had been unaware of all this time, and the flames of revenge were ignited within me. I'm Lily, 63 years old. My husband has already passed away, and I live alone. My 40-year-old son and his wife have a 4-year-old girl and a 3-year-old boy, and they lived about a 3-hour drive from my house. My son Tyler and his wife Isabella would visit my house with their children a few times a year. These were precious and joyful times for me, but there was something that concerned me a little. It was about my granddaughter, Sophia. Somehow, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was being treated differently from her brother, Jacob. I first noticed this one day when my son and his wife were staying overnight. Tyler and Isabella took only Jacob shopping, saying they were going to buy him toys. After they left, Sophia looked at me with her adorable eyes and said, "Grandma, I'm hungry." "Oh, I'm sorry I didn't notice. I'll make something for you right away." I grabbed a frying pan and made her some pancakes, which she had previously said were delicious. When I put them on a plate and added butter and syrup, Sophia beamed with a big smile. "Wow! It smells so good. Be careful not to burn yourself, sweetie." "Okay. Thank you, Grandma." As I cut the pancakes into bite-sized pieces for her, Sophia's eyes sparkled as she stuffed her mouth full. Watching her, I felt a sense of healing. Sophia said, "It's so fluffy and delicious," while gulping down her milk. Just then, I heard the front door open and heavy footsteps echoing. "Sophia! Why are you the only one eating? Give that to Jacob. I'm about to make some for him too, don't say things like that." As I was about to go to the kitchen, Tyler abruptly took the pancakes away from Sophia and fed them to Jacob. Seeing this, Sophia's face fell, and she hung her head dejectedly. Feeling sorry for Sophia, I once again said, "I'll make new ones for Jacob," but Tyler refused, saying, "There's no need for that. There's no need to take food away from her when she's still eating. Sophia doesn't eat much. Right? You're full, aren't you?" Sophia had just started eating the pancakes, so there was no way she could be full. I told Tyler this, but he didn't seem to be listening to me at all. "Mother-in-law, please don't worry about it. We're having trouble with Sophia always wanting food even though she hardly eats anything. It's just a waste to give her food." At that moment, I felt something odd about the cold look Isabella gave Sophia, despite her being her own daughter. Seeing Sophia's sad face, I thought she might be unable to speak up, so I argued with them that can't be true, but they wouldn't listen to me. Just then, I felt a tug on the hem of my apron. When I looked down, Sophia was signaling to me with her small hand, looking at me with an expression that seemed to want to say something. "I'm going to get some drinks. Sophia, would you like to help me?" She nodded, and when we went to the kitchen together, Sophia whispered, "It's okay, it always happens. I'm the big sister, so I give it to Jacob." With an unsettled feeling, I was arranging drinks on the table while Sophia was eagerly helping me. "Sophia, stop lying about being hungry when you're not. Now that you have a little brother, you need to act more like a big sister." As Sophia apologized with a dejected, "I'm sorry," after being scolded by her parents, my heart ached. And when I looked closely, I saw Sophia quietly rubbing her stomach. She must have still been hungry. Thinking that Sophia wouldn't tell me the truth if I asked her about the situation right there, I gently took her hand when we were alone. "If there's anything, you can tell me. I won't tell your mom and dad. I feel lonely because they only dote on Jacob." Sophia let slip her true feelings. I squeezed her hand tightly and said softly, "You can rely on me." Sophia smiled happily and hugged me. "Such a small child is hurting like this, I have to do something about it." As I observed, I noticed that my son and his wife hardly spoke to Sophia, and she was playing by herself. In contrast, they doted excessively on Jacob. Thinking this couldn't continue, I sat down with them after the children had gone to sleep and had a serious talk. However, they remained adamant, saying, "That's just Sophia's imagination. We're raising them without favoritism. In the first place, it's only natural that things changed dramatically for her when her brother was born, after being treated like a princess until then." "That's right. Sophia is the older sister, so she needs to be a little more patient." While there was some logic to what they were saying, the fact remained that a small child was being hurt. "I won't forgive you if you continue to make Sophia suffer like this. Even though we live apart, I'll be keeping a close eye on you." I drove this point home to them, but they brushed me off, saying, "Don't worry about it. Enjoy your trip. Don't forget to bring us souvenirs." The next day, they quickly packed up and left after breakfast. "I need to do something about this, I'm worried." While considering what I could do, I went on a planned overseas trip with my friends. When I mentioned the situation to a friend who was traveling with me, I got an idea that I planned to implement when I returned home. On the third day of the trip, while we were having a meal, I suddenly received a call from Tyler. "Sophia has been seriously injured." "What? What's her condition? Tell me what you know." Apparently, Sophia had fallen from a jungle gym, hit her head hard, and was covered in blood. She was unconscious and had been taken to the emergency room, where they said her life was in danger. I couldn't sit still and told my friends about the situation, then booked a return flight ticket. It wasn't possible to leave that day, so I took a flight the next day. During that time, I tried to contact Tyler but couldn't get through, so I spent the time anxiously waiting. When I called my son to go directly to the hospital where Sophia had been taken from the airport, he spoke in a strained voice. "I'm sorry I couldn't answer your calls all this time. Sophia didn't make it. She passed away shortly after I called you. Her injuries were so severe that we've already held the funeral and cremated her." As I was at a loss for words, my son sent me a photo of a small urn. "Sophia. How did this happen?" After crying silently in the airport lobby for a while, I told Tyler I was coming to his house, but he hesitated, saying, "That's a bit. It was so sudden, and Isabella is still in shock, so could you please leave us alone for now?" I understood that Isabella must be extremely shocked after losing her precious daughter. Understanding those feelings, I reluctantly trudged home with a heavy heart. I placed a photo of Sophia in the living room. As the feeling that I would never see her again overwhelmed me, I couldn't stop my tears. At that time, I noticed that something I had ordered had arrived in the mailbox, but thinking there was no use for it now, I carelessly put it in the bag I always use. Some time later, when I called my son, I was told that they had interred Sophia's remains in the same grave where my husband rests. "What? Why didn't you tell me?" "Isabella said she absolutely didn't want to see you. Remember when we last met, you suspected her of favoring only Jacob? Since then," he said, "she had been unable to recover from her wounded heart. I've done something terrible to her. Can't you help me make amends? I want to apologize properly." "No, just leave us alone now. I don't like you prying into our affairs either. In the end, I wasn't allowed to go to my son's house, and they even asked me not to visit the grave because it would be painful to run into you there by chance. Then, Tyler and Isabella said they couldn't bear to live in the place where they lost Sophia and moved to a different area, and we eventually became estranged. And so, I spent my days crushed by sadness and regretting my words. A year later, on the anniversary of Sophia's death, I decided to visit the grave. Surely I wouldn't run into Tyler or Isabella if I went in the evening. As I headed to the grave with white flowers, I saw a small child crouching and praying in front of our family grave. Wondering who it could be, I called out, "Hello." When the child turned around, I froze in surprise. It was Sophia, who was supposed to have died. She saw me and happily ran towards me with a smile. While doubting my eyes, I instinctively hugged her tightly, feeling her warm skin as my mind went into confusion. "Grandma. Were you alive?" "Yes, of course." As I listened to Sophia say these strange things, a terrible truth came to light. When I checked the gravestone, Sophia's name wasn't engraved on it. What a cruel thing to do. I'll never forgive them. They'd better be prepared. Anger and a desire for revenge began to boil inside me. I remembered something I had been carrying around and set up a certain device, then parted ways with Sophia there. I will protect Sophia's smile no matter what. 30 minutes later, I visited my son's house, where he said they had moved. I was certain they were inside, but even though I rang the doorbell, there was no answer. They were probably pretending not to be home. Unable to wait even a second longer, I flung open the front door with all my might. Tyler and Isabella inside jumped in surprise when they saw me. "Don't pretend you're not here. How did you open the front door? It wasn't locked in the first place." "Sophia. Grandma's here, you can come out now." "Huh? What are you talking about? I told you she's gone." As I called out Sophia's name loud enough to echo through the house, she came running with her cute little footsteps. I quickly moved to avoid being stopped by my son and held Sophia tightly in my arms. Seeing this, my son and his wife opened their eyes wide, seemingly unable to speak. I looked at them coldly with a stern face. I thought Sophia had passed away exactly a year ago, so why is she here? Realizing they couldn't cover it up anymore, Tyler made an unbelievable statement. "We pretended Sophia had left this world because it was troublesome to have you interfering with how we raise our children. You two are the worst. It's your fault. We were raising Sophia with love, but you accused us of only doting on Jacob." "That's right. It was so painful to be suspected like that for no reason. You're really inconsiderate, barging into someone's house like this." At first, the two of them were taken aback, but gradually they began to strongly accuse me. I couldn't back down now, so I showed them the photo I had taken at the grave. It showed Sophia in tattered clothes, emaciated, and covered in bruises. "Those clothes are the same ones Sophia is wearing now. Don't you even change her clothes when they get dirty? Sophia runs around outside, so her clothes get torn quickly. Besides, she doesn't eat much, and those bruises are from when she falls on her own." I couldn't believe it was just from falling, given the odd locations of the bruises. Realizing this was going nowhere, I played an audio recording for them. In it, you could hear my son and his wife berating Sophia. "Sophia, you're a nuisance. If you hadn't been looking out the window, this wouldn't have happened. It makes me sick. This is bad enough, but you even plan to send her to the next world. I can't believe you're my son, you two are so cruel. How did you record our conversation?" They seemed surprised by the clear audio quality. So I explained that I had hidden a listening device in the pouch Sophia was carrying. Moreover, I had asked Sophia to deliberately leave that pouch in the living room. Actually, when I went on a trip with my friends a year ago, they taught me this method. So, I had ordered the device online so I could implement it as soon as I returned home. However, when I heard the news that Sophia had died, I left it unused in my bag. I had completely forgotten about it, but by chance, when I came to visit the grave, Sophia and her family had come to a nearby park. At first, they were going to leave Sophia at home alone and go on a picnic with just the three of them. But when they got into the car, a neighbor happened to pass by and said, "It's nice to go out as a family. But is she staying home alone?" pointing at Sophia, who was peeking out the window. So they had no choice but to bring Sophia along. However, as usual, only Jacob received attention, while Sophia was left alone. Sophia had been playing by herself for a while, but as she explored here and there, she ended up at the grave she had visited before. The clever Sophia remembered this place and was praying there. "So you met at that grave?" "Yes. That's when I planted the listening device and followed you here." "Don't play dirty tricks." "Oh my, is that someone who pretended to send Sophia to the next world and even taught this child that I had passed away can say?" My son and his wife had taught Sophia that Grandma has died, so that she and I wouldn't meet. What kind of people are they? Perhaps they didn't expect to be found out to this extent, but they seemed unable to say a word as I hit a sore spot. They looked awkward for a moment, but soon they seemed to remember something and approached me. "How dare you eavesdrop on other people's conversations? We'll sue you. Go ahead if you want. But just eavesdropping alone isn't punishable by law. Besides, I did it to protect my precious granddaughter, so there's no problem." When I refuted them confidently, Isabella, who had been silent until then, approached Sophia. Sophia, thinking she might do something to her, shrank back and started trembling. "I can tell how you usually treat her just by looking at her reaction. Stop making false accusations. I'm really going to call the police." "Go ahead. Call them right now. But it won't be me who gets arrested, it'll be you too." As I hugged Sophia tightly and glared at them, they suddenly turned pale. When I pressed them about why they had done such a terrible thing, Tyler reluctantly opened his mouth. "Girls are useless, aren't they? They'll just get married and go to someone else's family, while boys can become heirs. If that's such a ridiculous reason, what are those documents on the table?" My son tried to hide them with a startled look, but I quickly snatched them away before he could. Looking inside, I found an insurance policy for children, with marks next to the amounts payable in case of death or severe aftereffects. They had even been aiming for Sophia's life insurance money. "This is just in case of an emergency. Before I came into this house, you were planning to send Sophia to the next world, weren't you?" Actually, there was more to this story. They were laughing and talking about how even if they failed, they would still get money if Sophia became disabled. "I can't leave these children with you. Who knows what you might do?" "Isabella, did you call the police?" "If not, I'll contact them." "Wait, please. Mom, calm down. If we get involved with the police, it's Sophia and Jacob who will suffer. Is that what you want?" Thinking they didn't understand at all, I held hands with my grandchildren and turned to face them. Then I suggested, "Let's ask them," and my son and his wife agreed, saying, "That's a good idea. I don't want a papa and mama who won't even feed me. I want to be with Grandma." Hearing these words, Tyler and Isabella simultaneously snorted, saying, "See, Sophia isn't cute." Next, I got down to Jacob's eye level and said, "Tell me what you're thinking, anything is fine." Jacob said, "I don't like Papa and Mama either. Because they're mean to Sophia." Tyler and Isabella looked dumbfounded. It was revealed that they had also occasionally given Jacob harsh punishments under the guise of discipline. How could they have treated such young children in a way that made them say they were unwanted? Actually, when I reunited with Sophia at the grave, I had already heard about this. Jacob was a kind child, and whenever Sophia was scolded by their parents and denied meals, he would secretly bring her bread to eat. Despite being so young, the siblings had a strong bond, which reassured me. It's settled then. Sophia, Jacob, from now on, let's live together. The children's expressions immediately brightened, and they nodded vigorously. Wait a minute. What's going to happen to us? First, I suppose it'll be a holding cell. After that, perhaps a life surrounded by high walls. Anyway, make sure you reflect deeply on what you've done. As I took the hands of my dear grandchildren and headed towards the front door, Tyler and Isabella bowed their heads repeatedly, begging for forgiveness. They would probably just repeat the same behavior again. I stopped for a moment and looked Tyler and Isabella straight in the eyes. I'll have others judge what you've done. Be prepared. They clung to me, crying, but there was no way I would believe their excuses. Furthermore, thinking it was impossible to convince me, they kept telling Sophia and Jacob, "Please forgive Papa and Mama." When Sophia and Jacob said, "We hate Papa and Mama. Don't touch us," Tyler and Isabella became dazed on the spot. After that, I filed a police report and submitted the photographic and audio evidence. My son and his wife were asked to come in for voluntary questioning, and it was determined that they had been causing daily suffering to their children. They ended up spending some time in prison. I decided to officially adopt Sophia and Jacob as my own children. Actually, it was Sophia who had quietly unlocked the front door of their house that day. When I asked her to do so at the grave, the clever Sophia carried out the request perfectly. That's why I was able to rescue them from those evil hands, and I truly feel that now. Since then, Sophia has had a hearty appetite, returned to a healthy weight, and plays energetically every day. Jacob spends each day smiling and having fun with Sophia. I told the two of them, "If you ever want to see Papa and Mama, just let me know," but they don't seem to have any desire to do so at all. I wonder how Tyler and Isabella raised them. I vowed to keep working hard so that my grandchildren can always wear smiles on their faces.